I hope you're ready for some illogic. And now, it's time for a new season on the channel. Yes, the Draft League content continues, but we're stepping away from the Wooper Club League for a moment to focus on my participation in this, the 8-Bit Draft Season 6 OU League. I have a bit of a history with the league. I've finished second overall in Season 4's Special League and made a playoff appearance in Season 5's OU League. I've mentioned them before briefly, but I had an absolute blast in them, and after 2 appearances in 2 seasons of the playoffs, we're back for more with an absolutely crowded field of studs in the Hoenn division. Winning 4 games would be an achievement, let alone making playoffs, let alone winning a playoff match or 2. But that's the goal as always. I'm not the most active on the Discord for the league, but I definitely keep track of its ongoing events and discussions, so I feel as though maybe I'm a little bit underrated. What better way to declare that I'm here than with a successful season against all these amazing opponents? So let's get to it, but some ground rules for the league and its rules first. To start, this is a National Dex draft, including Mega Evolutions, but excluding Dynamax and Z-Crystals. But it also cuts the same moves that were cut in Sword and Shield, including but not limited to Pursuit, Hidden Power, Tail Glow, Signal Beam, and others. That's a big hit for the viability of some, and quite the boon for others. I may or may not have picked more of the former, but let's not worry about that. First, a couple of shout-outs. Thanks to 8-Bit Draft Leagues for having me back. Elite Four Renegade has always run an awesome ship. Thanks to Warbear and Granbell and the others for being great mods for us, keeping us on track and helping me out a little bit when I need to leave picks with them. And thanks to everyone I missed on the success of the season. Additionally, another big shout out to Sasbo for helping me keep my mind through the draft and team building processes. I know it was probably tough this time as I kept changing my mind over and over, but I appreciate you sticking with me, man, and reading through the lines of text I'd send, reasoning things through. You're the best. So, with that being said, let's move into the draft itself. The draft had 32 people involved overall. We split the draft into 2 groups of 16, so in my group, 16 people drafted through. But within those groups, the first 8 and the last 8 were the only ones to play each other. So as the 4th overall pick in my draft, I only had to worry about the others in the first 8 slots of my draft. This definitely affected the drafting process, as seeing as some of the top threats around me inspired some of my picks, specifically to help deal with them. Not entirely, I don't think you can counterbuild everyone, but I did a little bit of that. Then I needed to pay a little more attention to my opponents this time, as we landed ourselves in a horrifyingly difficult division, which again, we will be going into more later. Out of the 8 of us, my Special League Finals appearance and OU Playoffs appearance make me maybe the 6th most seasoned player in that division. Yeah, so it's going to be very rough. We've got our work cut out for us, but we're going to do our best. So, to start the draft, I was very much hoping that Zygarde would drop down to us. Dragapult was an easy first overall pick. I just finished using it with the Wooper Club League, so I don't think that was really consideration for me anyways. However, Zygarde was indeed taken 2nd overall, so I had a few options to mull over. Things like Zeraora, Spectrier, Cinderace, Landorus-Therian, Dracovish, Darmanitan Galar, and even some mega picks like Lopunny or Mawile. But in the end, there was one mon that I've wanted to try out for a very long time. It fits my playstyle well, it's incredibly versatile, it can run a multitude of spreads or sets, and it's something I can bring in some capacity every single week. And that, of course, is Tornadus-Therian, as you can see on the screen now. Ever since seeing Wolfie use Torn so well back in, was it maybe Season 2 of the WBE? Oh my goodness, Wolfie really used this thing masterfully. I was really inspired by his play. I hope to use some of the cool tricks I've learned to maneuver around. Torn, as I said, has amazing attributes, starting with the base 121 speed. For almost every major threat that we're facing this season, aside from the Dragapult, Zeraora, and Greninja, along with a couple other smaller threats. The ability to invest in speed and feel comfortable with what it outpaces is amazing, and while I do expect to run Timid most weeks, I don't really need to if I want to put points in something else. For example, I may run max HP most weeks because it synergizes amazingly with Regenerator, or I may need more special attack for a particular calc, or more Spadef on an Assault Vest set, or more Fizdef for a helmet set. Again, tons of versatility just by merits of its stats and what needs to be done week to week. Not to mention the move pool, which includes great coverage with Hurricane or Air Slash, Heat Wave, Grass Knot, Icy Wind, Focus Blast, and others, but most importantly, provides utility with things like Defog, Knockoff, and U-Turn, often hailed as 3 of the most important moves in the entire game. The most important piece out of all of this, however, in my eyes, is Taunt. I love the fast Taunt Mew provided last season, maybe my favorite move to use in draft at this point, so I'm loving the sheer amount of moves this thing has access to, not to mention new additions like a Nasty Plot that can transform its role entirely. stellar Mon. Definitely the focal point of the team moving forward that I will be building around. And that's an important mindset to have, as you'll see that my team goes in a couple different directions that could otherwise lead me astray if I don't focus around Torn. But I'm convinced I'll like Tornadus-Therian enough to keep it at the forefront of my mind. So with that said, what are Torn's biggest weaknesses? Some more hazard control would be nice. It could alleviate the pressure of having to bring defog and boots every single week, as well as help its regenerator ability be used to its maximum potential. Additionally, the big weaknesses to look at are things like ice, electric, and rock, so something that can defensively fulfill those roles would be nice. And finally, a prime physically offensive piece to help balance the special offensive Torn works well too. Enter Excadrill, with rapid spin immunity to electric, a 4 times resistance to rock, and a physical piece whose coverage complements Torn. Strong Earthquakes and Iron Heads, Mold Breaker Stealth Rocks, and Hazard Removal, bulky sets to take advantage of the Steel typing and abuse Toxic synergy with the ground coverage. Coverage also includes Rock Slide and X-Scissor. Excadrill doesn't have as much versatility as Torn, but still enough to make an impact in most games. We can go a heavy offensive set, we can go a heavy defensive set. Don't forget, its defensive typing is still very good, and you see that base 110 HP. Invest a bunch in physical defense or special defense, and you'll see this thing transformed in an instant, not to mention, of course, the Sword Stance ability with a base 135 attack, and a solid 88 speed to complement and round things out as well. So my next 2 picks were based around one particular weakness I noted in bulky water types. Drill, aside from a water weakness, needs a Sword Stance breakthrough. Torn can really only taunt them and move on. With my 3rd pick, I added Bulk on both sides, another special attacker with incredible abilities and the capability of setting up all over bulky waters without a care in the world, and that is Reuniclus. Aside from forming a Regenerator core with Tornadus, it can also forego that for an immunity to all passive damage with Magikarp, allowing it to beat stall strats that include hazard damage, toxic damage, weather damage, and others. A strong Psychic attack, Psychic or Psyshock, including coverage that unfortunately does no longer include Hidden Power or Signal Beam, but it does come off a base 125 special attack stat that can be boosted by a Recoilless Life Orb, is nothing to sneeze at, even without full investment, meaning Psychic or Psyshock still hurt even when fully investing in bulk. Definitely a premier mod to take advantage of passive opportunities, opponents rather, with a setup or fire away with a strong attacks. Not to mention the Trick Room threat that this does provide, and in my opinion, this is quite a bargain at tier 2. The other side of beating water types is with its only 2 weaknesses being electric and grass moves. Rotom-Mow combines both of them into a genuine beast, and not having the 2 typings separated is fine when I have something like Reuniclus that also deals with the waters as well. I love Rotom forms, and from tier 3, this is a nice steal. It adds a ground immunity for my electric type, another pivot with Volt Switch to go with Tornadus' U-turn, another defog option to make 3 in my first 4 picks, another setup option with Nasty Plot, a reliable status applier with Burns, Paralysis, and Toxic, and a fantastic Scarf User with the ability to pivot, hit hard with Stab, or even Trick. Seriously, good options. Nice stats overall, allowed for similar EV spreads as Torn, with a timid nature and investment in either HP or special attack. Just a great all-around mon that serves as a very cool grass type. So at this point in the draft, I had 2 higher tier picks left that I knew I wanted, for sure. That would round out my core 6 mons that I could bring to any and every game. But until then, I need to fill some holes in the team. However, at this point, this draft, it dragged on very badly. And with other factors in play, I didn't make the greatest picks, and immediately after the draft, traded some away. For example, I prioritized Dredagon in this spot initially, actually, and drafted that as a reliable defensive dragon type with rocks and cool traits like a wide move pool and good abilities like Rough Skin or Sheer Force. However, at the end of the draft, I realized that the dragon typing really didn't do much for me, and I ended up replacing it. So even though I picked it up at this spot in the draft, I'm going to skip it for now until we get to the end of the draft and we can go over the new pickups. My next highest priority at this point, therefore, was speed, and I was worried about filling the speed gap between Tornadus-Therian and Excadrill. So out of tier 4, Frostlass was a cool little solution to that, providing things like the ability to go Choice Band and provide power, Choice Scarf in a pinch, or Focus Sash is kind of a cool lead, providing spike support among other things. Poltergeist is such a powerful move, as is Triple Axle if they all hit, so even if they have accuracy problems. But Frostlass appreciates the power of those moves being high to compensate for its own lack of stats. It's quickly become a pretty good mon, so let's hope that base 110 speed comes into play, if not just in T-building. Remember when I said the draft dragged on? Well, snipes were starting to come through. Even that Frostlass pick wasn't my number 1 option, helping out things like typing and speed steers. So I settled on a strategy and decided it was most important to just go get those top pieces to at least ensure that I got my core situated. So let's go with the Mega pick. That's right, Mega Tyranitar, Tier 1 Mega that has awesome synergy with the top dogs in the team, providing Sand for Excadrill, great resistances with Tornadus, and chip damage from the Sand that Excadrill and Reuniclus are immune to. Pursuit being caught is a big hit, but just look at the raw stats. The attack stat is through the roof, the defense and HP are dumb, and that Spadef looks even better in the Sand. Even special attack is very usable for mixed Tyraniboa sets, and access to Dragon Dance makes base 71 speed look a little nicer. Just a good mon, even with some big weaknesses and the inability to run an item. I do still believe the raw numbers make it worth a Tier 1 Mega slot, and I anticipate bringing it almost every week. Additionally, you may remember that last season in the Wooper Club League, I did mention how much I liked bringing T-Tar. This is your chance at redemption. Let's get to it, right? The other top pick I wanted to ensure after Mega T-Tar comes right here as well. Azumarill slid down to Tier 2, and I most certainly took notice of what is normally a borderline pick between Tier 1 and Tier 2. It's definitely a bit strange, an offensive water type in draft, but with a huge HP stat and easy Assault Vest use, not to mention the extremely useful Fairy typing I now grabbed, Azu has more tanking potential than one might think. That aside, other non-elemental mons can fulfill tanking roles easily like Tornadus or Reuniclus, making the need for a bulky water less necessary overall. Being able to spend a Tier 2 pick on something as strong as Huge Power Zoomer was definitely a blessing. Not to mention the ability to run something like Sap Sipper or Thick Vat with a cool little Whirlpool set to trap and KO with Parastrap. But otherwise, a seriously strong one. Plus, Belly Drum will always be a threat that my opponents need to be ready for, which is pretty cool to force them to think about. Aqua and Strong Priority are the best parts in my option, along with amazing coverage including Play Rough, Ice Punch, Knockoff, or Superpower. Very excited to use Azu effectively. With the main core being set, that being Tornadus-Therian, Excadrill, Tyranitar, Reuniclus, Azumarill, Rotom-Mow, the rest of the crew, including that Frostlass we already grabbed, is just here to fill in effectively. Frostlass handled the speed aspect, but I wanted to grab a certain other ghost type that I wanted to use in the exact opposite way of Frostlass. I thought that Palisand was a great Tier 5 bargain, as it can get up rocks very efficiently, provide enough power with Shadow Ball and the ability to burn with Scorching Sands, because it doesn't have access to Willow, it can still burn now, but it also is the main piece of it being that it is a physically defensive wall. With tons of physical bulk, I plan on making this a prime candidate for things like Leftovers or Rocky Helmet, supplemented by its access to Shore Up, which would be amazing to get off in T-Tar Sand as well. Kind of an aspect of it that's not used, but Shore Up in the Sand recovers 2/3 rather than 1/2, which is pretty cool. Both of its typings do overlap the types of others, but it fulfills such a different role from either Excadrill or Frostlass that I think it's fine, and as a Tier 5, of course it isn't coming to every match. But in the times its niche comes up, I have a lot of faith in it coming through. So now we reach the awkward part of the draft. I'd originally drafted 3 mons that I almost immediately let go of. Shout out to Accidental, with whom I bounced ideas off of for transactions to fix up some of the weak spots of the team. In effective week 2, I got to trade in a Tier 3, a Tier 4, and a Tier 5. Starting with the most relevant, that being Tier 3 of course, I originally had drafted Porygon Z, a special nuker with decent speed that could take advantage of some of the momentum I'd gotten from things like Tornadus, similarly to Azumarill. While I don't regret the pickup, and I would really like to use it in a later draft too, I found something that just fit better. Araquanid, its main selling point on the team, is its typing, particularly another Ice, Ground, and Fighting Resist, all of which I felt I desperately needed to help supplement my Tier 1s and Mega. I mentioned that Azumarill can be an awkward water type pick because of the need for a bulky water, and while Araquanid doesn't have access to recovery outside of Rest and Leech Life, together they can tank just about whatever is needed. That aside, these two work well together with incredibly strong water moves spammed with each other. Water Bubble increasing Liquidation's power first and foremost, and Araquanid can also provide valuable Sticky Web support, among other things. This is a really cool piece for a Tier 3 mon, something that can slot in relatively easily. My Tier 4 pick covered a couple things in particular that I was missing, another Ice Resist as well as Fighting, neither of which was provided by Druddigon. So I felt like a Fire type like Delphox seemed quite valuable to finish the Fire Water Grass core. Another big issue is the speed gap here between Frostlass's 110 and Excadrill's 88. A very valuable gap that consists of good Scarfers, among other things. Finally, Delphox also actually gets Wish support and has Deceptive Bulk with HP comparable to Florges and pretty good special defense, not to mention a great special attack stat to still provide an offensive threat. Not sure how often I can bring the Fox, but those were all valuable traits that I definitely desired for my Tier 4 that I got in place of Druddigon. And for my last selection, I had originally selected Tangela as a bit of a meme pick, providing more physical defense against a division inclined that way, while being another regenerator user alongside Tornadus. Not to mention, of course, being my favorite Pokemon of all time. But in the end, we found something that synergizes a little better. To finish off the speed gap, now between Delphox's 104 and Excadrill's 88, a 95 stat on a fighting type with bunches of coverage and high attack seemed pretty nice. Primeape, aside from having easily spammable moves like Close Combat or U-Turn, is a great Scarf Mon and can function with its coverage, and also comes with Vital Spirit for sleep users or Defiant to punish anyone trying to defog. Pretty cool for Tier 5. It seems like it'd be nice to bring it to at least one match with all these positive traits. So, that's the team we're working with. Again, I foresee the core of Torn, Drill, T-Tar, Reunite, Azu, and Rotom being the main 6 to bring, but Araquanid can definitely fight for the spots, and the rest should have niche cases throughout the league. The speed tiers seem okay to this point. Something above Torn probably would have been nice, but nothing was particularly available that didn't amplify the weaknesses of my team. And I also do still have Excadrill in the sand, which can run past plenty of threats if needed. Speaking of repeat uses, I used Drill in my Special League run in Season 4 of 8-Bit. Same deal with Reuniclus. Palisand I used in my first draft league in Gen 7, actually. I was very pleased with it even then. And of course, T-Tar, while not Mega, was on my Whooper Club League Season 6 team for a bit before dropping it to Mew. I loved using it, and I love the versatility, so I'm more than happy to give another chance. I think I'm most excited to use Torn, for sure, followed maybe by that Azumarill that I was very glad slipped under the radar of everyone else as a sleeper Tier 2 pick. I really like the feel of the team. Lots of versatility everywhere. Pivoting with Torn or Rotom into big hitters, bulky teammates to absorb hits, setup sweepers everywhere. Nice coverage across the board. This is exciting. It may look different to my usual teams, but I think my playstyle will lend itself well to this squad. That is our draft breakdown. Next time we're going to head over to Week 1 of our season against Cyan and the SoCal Sobble squad. See ya.